Welcome to Passion for Sound, the channel dedicated to thorough and honest reviews of headphones, earphones, DACs, headphone amps, other components and accessories. Basically everything audio related except power amps and passive speakers. My name's Lachlan and my goal is to explore and discuss all kinds of audio topics, even the controversial ones, to help us all find more enjoyment from music. Thanks for watching and enjoy the video. Hey folks, welcome to another Passion for Sound audio review, and today a look at a headphone you probably haven't heard of in the Eoz Arc. These are a very affordable, all metal designed, active noise cancelling wireless headphone. And I must say I've been pretty impressed with them overall. They're not perfect, but at the price, there's lots of great things I've got to say about them. So stick around as I explain to you why I think these are actually a really fantastic option if you're in the market for a Bluetooth noise cancelling headphone. The Eoz Arc are listed on the website for $109 US, but I believe that might be an early pre-order type pricing that may be ending on the 20th of April. So make sure if you're interested in these and they sound good to you, that you get in and grab that price while it's available. Now, very importantly here, there's no kickbacks or anything in me sharing this with you. Eoz reached out to me and asked if I'd like to review these. They were sent for free, but there's no further arrangements in place. So it's just a case here of me sharing my honest opinions. And as you'll hear shortly, not everything's good. So there's good and bad about these. But if you do want to snap them up, based on what I'm about to say, you might want to get in early because the website would suggest that the pricing will change come 20th of April. For those viewers here in Australia, the Eoz Arc is 143 Australian dollars in the current pricing. So once again, very, very affordable for a headphone of this nature, that being Bluetooth and active noise cancelling with a chassis and frame made of metal. Inside these housings, you've got a 40mm dynamic driver on each side, and that's powered by an active noise cancelling circuit. Now, interestingly with these, as I'll talk about soon, you can switch that active noise cancelling on and off, so you can use them as just a pure Bluetooth headphone or a noise cancelling headphone. As I'll tell you shortly, you probably want to stick with noise cancelling though. Anyway, we'll get to that soon. Before I do, let's talk about what else you need to know about these. They've got a simple metal headband here, which is quite light, quite thin metal, but it's relatively well finished. So what I'd say is it feels like it's been made fairly cheaply, but not in a bad way. And what I mean by that is the quality is good. It is metal, it's steel by the look and feel of it. It's going to last, it's going to survive any, bumps and dings and drops you might give it, but it's also not beautifully finished as a higher end headphone might be. So the edges here are smooth, but they're a flat cut. They haven't been nicely rounded off or shaped or anything. They're just a flat piece of metal bent into the headband. The ear cups themselves slide up and down on that headband, and there's a little flat ribbon style wire into each cup that moves to allow you for that movement. It's a design that looks a little bit clumsy to me, but I think ultimately it's going to survive the usage that it's going to get, and that's all that really matters. Even if it does look a bit funny, the way it sort of kinks the ribbon cable doesn't look great to me, but I don't think it's going to be a problem in the long run. On the cups themselves, we've got an oval opening that to me is perfectly sized for most ears. Some people with very large ears may find some troubles with this. I don't seem to have big ears, and I didn't have any significant problems. On each ear cup, you've also got different controls. So on the left side ear cup, which I've actually got on the wrong side, you've got your controls for volume up, volume down, power on, activating your assistant, so Siri, Google, etc. The volume control buttons will also act as the skip, track, forwards and backwards buttons. So it's a short press to go up in volume or down in volume. It's a long press to go forwards a track or backwards a track. On the left ear cup here, we've also got a USB-C socket for charging up the headphones. So that's all that's on the left. Over on the right, even simpler, we've got a single switch, which is to switch on or off the active noise cancelling circuit. That also seems to apply some amplification to the drivers, and that changes the sound significantly, as I'll talk about in a moment. While we're talking about the overall design of these, I've already mentioned the headband feels cheap but good enough, if that makes sense. So it's certainly fine. It's relatively lightweight. It's just not finished as perfectly as some of the higher end equipment is, but it feels fine to interact with. There's no issues, no sharp edges. Continuing on that theme, the padding itself underneath is also quite light and pretty squishy. I was concerned at first that these were going to get uncomfortable, but on extended use and listening, I haven't had any problems. And I'm actually wondering if some of the design choices in terms of the thinner, simple metal band, the slightly lighter weight padding, I'm wondering if all of this is designed to actually make them more comfortable by keeping weight down and pressure on the head down by using a softer foam. The same is true of the ear pads. They're pretty soft and squishy, and the clamping force is not strong, so when you put them on, they don't seal really firmly to your head, but clearly they do enough because the bass output is just fine. In fact, for some people, it's going to be too much, so I'm going to talk about shortly. So all in all, I'd say the physical design of these is probably as good as I'd expect for a headphone of this price, but it's a bonus that it's all made of metal. The metal feels like it's finished more cheaply than higher grade headphones like, say, a pair of Focals or something like that, but at the same time, it's nice to have metal rather than plastic. So the physical design, I would say, is good. I wouldn't quite go so far as great, but it's good, and particularly for the price. The other thing I want to talk about is the Bluetooth and the active noise cancelling circuit built in. So the Bluetooth, first and foremost, gives you SBC, AAC, and aptX HD codecs. For those of you who think I just spewed out a whole lot of random consonants again, a bit like in my BGVP DM8 review, what I'm actually talking about here is the different codecs for the Bluetooth signal to go from your smartphone through to the headphones themselves. SBC and AAC are the pretty standard options for Android and iPhone respectively, but then moving over to aptX, that in theory should give us a higher sound quality when using the Eoz Arc. And without giving too much away, I can tell you that I've thoroughly enjoyed the sound quality that I get from these, and so whatever they're doing is working well. I'm not going to delve deeply into which codecs sound better or worse. I'll let you try that. What I like to talk about is the default settings out of the box and how will they work. And to me, they work just fine. Pairing was seamless and easy, and then the sound playback has been overall enjoyable throughout my listening time. One thing that I do want to note is that if you're in a very quiet space and you want to switch on active noise cancelling, which as I'll explain soon, you probably do, then you are going to be able to hear a little bit of hiss coming through the system. So the amplification circuit built in isn't a noiseless system. It's producing a bit of background noise and a bit of hiss, which when you're out and about is fine. But if you are using these in a quiet office environment, you may actually find you hear that background noise. It's a bit of a shame that it's not silent. It does detract a little bit for me from quiet listening experiences, but it's not the end of the world, particularly at $109. So with all that in mind, let's talk a bit now about the sound quality. And I have to tackle this in a couple of ways because there's the sound quality with noise cancelling off and the sound quality with noise cancelling on. Enjoying this video? If you are and you'd like to help me make more videos like this one, there are lots of ways you can help, and most of them don't cost you a cent. You can help for free by liking this video, subscribing and ringing the bell, sharing this video on social media or your favourite audio forums, or by making your next purchases using any of the affiliate links in the description. Obviously that's not technically free, but you're not spending anything extra and it all helps out. Want to go a step further? You could buy some merchandise, t-shirt, hoodies, caps and the like, or you can join the Passion for Sound family on Patreon. It's a growing community with plenty of interesting discussion and your chance to influence what happens on the channel. Check out the description for more information and links where relevant. But for now, let's get back to the video. First of all, the sound quality with the noise cancelling off is pretty average. If these sounded that way all the time, I wouldn't be recommending them at all. I find them pretty thin, very forwards in the vocals and the mid-range, and not in a good way. Everything just sounds a bit lightweight and a bit ethereal, and I didn't enjoy it. As a result of the mid-forward sound and the lack of bass, it's a sound that's very lacking in dynamics and is maybe okay if you listen to things like audiobooks or podcasts, but for music listening, I really wouldn't recommend these without active noise cancelling engaged. The one use case I can see for listening to music with it switched off is that it does get right out of the way in terms of then being able to hear your ambient surroundings. So if you're in a situation where you're listening to these with active noise cancelling engaged, but then you want to hear a bit about what's going on around you, switching it off briefly with that switch on the right ear cup could be a very good option because it pulls back the bass that's going to mask a lot of the information going on around you. It also, of course, switches off noise cancelling, and so all of a sudden the music's there in the background and you can hear everything else. The switch also seems to remove the amplification going on, so I haven't measured it specifically, but it seems to drop it by a significant number of decibels as well. All in all, I think that's going to be the best use for having that active noise cancelling switch is for an ambient mode, awareness of your surroundings type situation, but the rest of the time, for most listening, you're going to want to leave it switched on. And so that leads us to active noise cancelling switched on. And in that situation, these are a different beast entirely. In fact, almost an opposite sound signature is what you get when you flick that switch over. All of a sudden the bass is boosted, the mids are pulled back, and the treble's boosted, so they become quite an aggressive V shape with a tilt towards the bass. And so for me, I don't always like a V-shaped sound, particularly when the treble is the point of emphasis, but I think these do a really good job of producing a fun V-shaped sound. Because the bass gets extra emphasis, they really become warm and rich and enjoyable to listen to, so long as you like a good helping of bass. As I've talked about in other reviews, particularly for portable devices, having extra bass is a really good thing when you're out and about, because it's the bass sounds, the lower frequencies, that tend to get through our bone conduction and into our ears, even when we're wearing headphones or earphones. So having that extra bass helps to offset the background noise and prevent you from turning up your headphones or earphones too loud. So in that regard, I've really liked how the Arcs are tuned, and I think they're a really enjoyable sound. They're not reference, they're not pretending to be reference, they're just a fun and engaging listen. The things that have particularly impressed me about the Arcs have been their ability to produce a good sense of separation and space within the soundstage. That's not something you generally get from a closed headphone, let alone from a budget headphone using Bluetooth. So the fact that they pulled all that together and made for a really immersive listening experience, I think should be applauded. As I was listening to these one night, I actually had them on while I was recording some B-roll footage, and I was listening to a range of tracks, and generally speaking, I was feeling like they were doing a decent job. And then one particular track came on, which was a John Mayer track. I think it was from the live John Mayer Trio album, but I don't remember for sure. What impressed me though was that the bass in that track was so beautifully rendered and had so much extension to it that it was just impressive to be coming from a small budget Bluetooth headphone. That really set me off into listening to more and more tracks, and so I've got a couple of examples now to give you a sense of the good and the bad of the Arcs based on some specific listening. The first track that came along that I thought was notable was Hey Now by London Grammar. This track has a lot of electronic music going on behind a really beautifully recorded vocal. And what I noticed was the bass became just a little bit overwhelming on this track. It's bassy at the best of times, but the Arcs probably took it just a little bit too far. And so it's probably a warning for those that don't like too much bass. The Arc might not be for you. If you're like me and you enjoy your bass, these could be a really great option. On Hey Now, whilst the bass itself was a touch overwhelming, the vocals were still really present and really well focused, and what was most impressive for me, as I've already alluded to, was the separation of sounds within the soundstage. Everything had its own sense of space, there was good width and a reasonably good sense of depth, particularly when you're talking about a Bluetooth headphone. That's really the separation for me. These perform in terms of soundstage like some of the better wired headphones I've listened to in, say, the $300 or $400 range. That's really impressive coming from a $110 portable Bluetooth headphone, and closed for that matter. So in that regard, they're doing wonderful things so long as you like that bit of extra emphasis on the bass. But sometimes that coloration is going to work against the Arcs. So I've sometimes talked before about what I call negative synergies, and that's where a particular headphone's tuning, if it's a little bit extreme in its tuning, can interact negatively with recordings or equipment that has colorations of its own. And in this case, one of the tracks I was listening to was Junko Partner by Harry Connick Jr. It's a recording of just Harry and a piano and his vocals, and whilst the recording itself is not great to begin with, what I found was that listening to it on the Arcs kind of enhanced the problems with the existing recording. And that is that the piano sounds a bit like it's maybe behind a curtain or something. I'm not suggesting it was, but it sounds a little bit that way in the recording. The piano's just a little bit pulled back in the mix and a bit muffled sounding overall. With the Arcs, that goes to another level and makes it even more muffled and distant sounding. Harry's vocals sound quite good over the top, but they don't sound like they're merged well together with the piano, and that's an issue in the recording, but it's further enhanced or exacerbated by the Arcs. So in that regard, you are going to come across moments where there is a bit of negative synergy with these because of their strong coloration and their very strong tuning. They are going to occasionally have a misstep with certain tracks. The good news is, on most tracks, it doesn't seem to be an issue and they're just fun and engaging. Like I said before, not reference, not neutral in any way, but good fun. One other fantastic thing I want to mention about the Arcs before I continue on is that they're also usable as a wired headphone and with the active noise cancelling available. So I didn't mention before, which I should have, on the bottom of the right cup here is a 3.5mm input. They come with a 3.5 to 3.5mm cable, and plugging that into a high quality source reveals that the Arcs are also a really nice wired headphone. They probably don't amaze me quite as much as a wired headphone as they do as a Bluetooth headphone, but the quality is comparable. The reason I say they don't wow me as much is that I expect less from Bluetooth than I do from wired, and therefore the fact that they perform pretty similarly with both is a good thing for the Bluetooth, but is just okay for the wired. The good news is you can get the benefits of your active noise cancelling with a high quality source to get a little bit of extra quality out of that high quality source. So for instance, I can plug in the Arcs to the Hugo TT2 behind me here and enjoy the best quality source input to give the Arcs the best possible sound quality they can deliver. Now that does reveal that they aren't the best headphone on the planet, but it's still very enjoyable and very listenable. To me, it also slightly improved the sound quality of the non-active noise cancelling mode, and whilst the sound was still very mid-forward, it didn't feel quite as bodiless and thin as it does when using it with Bluetooth. As always, I like to put these reviews into context when I can, and I just happen to have here at the moment another affordable Bluetooth noise cancelling headphone, specifically the OneOdio A30. I reviewed the OneOdio Pro 50s a while ago and was relatively impressed for their price. So these came in with some level of expectation, but still expectations relevant to a budget headphone. These cost $70 US, so they're $39 cheaper than the introductory price of the Arcs, and I was really keen to see if at this level of budget performance, you're getting that much more for your money when you're spending $39 more from the A30s to the Arcs. And what I'd say is that the Arcs definitely showed me that they're a better headphone. The A30s are great, and I'll go into much more detail in my review of those, but if you've got the extra to spend, the Arcs do win out for me. The A30s are a more compact design, they do fold up for transportation, whereas the Arcs don't. But on the other hand, the Arcs do produce the better sound quality. They've got a sense of separation and space in the soundstage, as I described before, that the A30s can't quite match. The A30s are a bit smoother and maybe a little bit less fatiguing for longer listening, but I think the enjoyment factor and the clarity factor of the Arcs would lead me to pick up the Arcs over the A30s for pure listening pleasure. Design-wise, I like the look of the Arc a bit better. I also like the fact that it's quite light and quite compact relative to the fairly chunky feel of the A30. Ultimately, both are good choices, as I'll cover off in my A30 review, but I do think it's worth spending the extra $39 on the Arc. All in all, I've been really, really impressed with these. I must say, taking them out of the box, I didn't expect a huge amount. I thought they looked like a relatively cheap attempt to make something that looked a bit flashy. But what I've seen over time and experienced over time is that they're probably not trying to be anything that they're not. They're made with metal to make them rugged and solid and long-lasting, but also kept cheap to keep the price down. But kept cheap in all the right ways, I think. What really matters with these is the sound quality that they put out is way better than what you'd expect for the price tag. The only real issues I can find with them is that they are strongly coloured and won't suit everybody's tastes, and that if you're listening in a quiet environment, you may hear some background hiss from the noise cancelling. In most circumstances though, where you're going to be using a portable Bluetooth noise cancelling headphone, that hiss is going to be completely irrelevant, and once the music starts, you're never going to hear it. So for my mind, if you're in the market for an active noise cancelling Bluetooth headphone in that $100-ish range, the Eoz Arc are absolutely worth going for. As I said at the beginning, I think the introductory pricing is ending on the 20th of April, according to their website. So if it's something you're interested in, take a look at the link down below, grab a pair for yourself now before that price goes up. There's no affiliates, there's no kickbacks here. I'm just letting you know of a product that I think are really good value. As always, if this video has been helpful to you, do think about subscribing and please hit the like button to help me get more of these videos to you and to others like you. For now though, I'll leave you to the music, so happy listening and I'll see you here next time on Passion for Sound.